I became a stranger to my wife and family after I was told that this medication was safe for me to take. I'm Frank, and I was diagnosed with diabetes a couple years ago. After being diagnosed, I became quite diligent with my health. I take brisk morning walks around my neighborhood, watch what I eat, basically stay active, and attend every doctor's appointment without fail. On one of such visits to my doctor, he mentioned an ongoing clinical study on the effects of a certain medication for people with diabetes. I didn't hesitate to sign up. The pitch was simple and persuasive. A well-tolerated medication that could lower cholesterol and reduce the risk of heart disease. It sounded like a no-brainer. I thought of it as another way to protect my future with my wife, Sarah. The study began uneventfully. I took the little white pill daily, logged my meals and activities, and attended routine checkups. But then, subtle changes started creeping in. Sarah noticed them first. At dinner one evening, I slammed my hand down on the table mid-sentence. The sound shocked Sarah.
Why do you always cut me off?
Sarah's eyes widened in shock. I had never raised my voice at her in our 32 years of marriage. I quickly muttered a half-hearted apology, startled by my own outburst, and retreated to the living room to watch some television. Sarah told herself it was a fluke. Everyone had bad days, right? But it didn't end there. I began losing my temper over the smallest inconveniences. A slow driver in front of me elicited a torrent of honking and shouting. A misplaced set of keys led to me throwing things and cursing the air. Sarah was bewildered, and increasingly afraid. On another evening, after I erupted over a lukewarm dinner, Sarah found herself clutching the edge of the table, her hands trembling. She stared at me, wondering how the man she loved had turned into someone she barely recognized. It wasn't just anger. There was a simmering unpredictability to my behavior now. My mood swung wildly, and my once reliable patience seemed to have evaporated. Sarah began keeping her distance, leaving me alone to avoid any fights between us. Weeks turned into months, and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong with me. Then one day, I stormed into the kitchen, my face flushed. I passed a letter to Sarah, the latest correspondence from the clinical study. I've had enough of this nonsense.
What do you mean?
This study? The pills. It's them. It has to be. I wasn't like this before, was I? Tell me the truth, Sarah.
No, Frank, you weren't.
I sank into a chair and began recounting the timeline of my behavior changes, and together, we realized it all pointed back to the start of the study. The realization felt like a jolt of electricity, an answer, but also a horrifying question. The next day, I called the study coordinator to report my suspicions. Her response was icy.
That's impossible. Statins don't cause behavioral changes. You must be imagining things.
I persisted, but the pushback was relentless.
It's critical for the study's integrity that you continue taking the medication. Dropping out now could compromise the data.
For a moment, I wavered. The doctors were the experts, weren't they? But then I thought about Sarah's tear-streaked face, the tension that had filled our home, the gnawing sense of losing self. No more. I'm done.
You can't just quit.
Watch me. I threw the pills away that evening, feeling a mix of defiance and uncertainty. What if I was wrong? What if the anger, the mood swings? What if it was all just me? But then, something remarkable happened. Within days, the darkness that had clouded my mind began to lift. The fiery outbursts faded, replaced by the steady calm that had defined me for decades. By the end of the second week, Sarah found me sitting on the porch, watching the sunset. She smiled happily. I'm back.
You are.
I later reported my experience to my primary care physician, who listened with raised eyebrows but offered no real explanation. The clinical study team continued to deny any connection between the medication and my symptoms. Frustrated but relieved to feel like myself again, I let it go. I decided to share my story, not as a warning against medication, but as a call for awareness. It is important to trust your instincts and advocate for yourself when something feels wrong.